Hello, and welcome to the Growing Our Family podcast, Pregnancy Edition, where we'll discuss topics ranging from your very first positive test all the way through delivery. I'm your host, Brittany, and I'm a new mom to a beautiful baby boy. Throughout my pregnancy, I did hours of research on everything that came my way. Join me on a weekly chat where I'll share my knowledge and personal experiences with all of you. You were listening to episode 16, RH Incompatibility. Hello, and welcome back to all my lovely listeners. I want to give a special shout out to everyone tuning in for their very first time on the podcast today. If any of you guys want to be a part of the show, whether that's sharing the story, leaving feedback, or even asking a question, you can send an email to brittany@growingourfamily.com, or you can like us and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And you can find us at the handle Growing Our Family, and that's growing the letter R family. And so let's get started on today's topic. RH incompatibility actually was a topic that I didn't know a bunch about because I didn't experience it during my pregnancy. But I got an email from a listener, and I'm going to read that to you guys right here. So she said, "Hey, my name's Ashley. I'm expecting my first baby, and I've been listening pretty much from the beginning. I just want to thank you for all this great content. I recently found out I'm RH negative and was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that on the show. Thanks." So, thank you, Ashley, for sending in the email. I really appreciate the listener feedback. It really means a lot, and it really helps us improve the show if you have any feedback for us. So, I decided to go ahead and put together an episode on RH incompatibility for you guys, and hopefully this helps out Ashley and some other listeners that might be experiencing that. So RH incompatibility during pregnancy can sound like a scary thing, and gone untreated, it can be dangerous to you and your baby. This post is intended to cover all the facts about RH incompatibility and how to prevent any potential problems. And I just want to start with a disclaimer that I am not a medical professional. This post is not intended to replace any information given to you by your OBGYN or midwife. If you have any concerns, please talk to a medical professional, and they will be able to give you individualized advice and treatment. This post is purely for educational purposes, and I pulled all the information from the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, the ACOG website. I will link to that website in my show notes if you guys want to read any more about it. But I just want to let you know, I did use an accredited source. It is information that has been verified. So everything I'm going to talk about today is true, but I'm definitely not a professional in this. If you want to check out the whole post, I'll link to the post on it if you prefer to read in my show notes as well. But I'm just going to dive right in. So what is an RH factor? So according to ACOG, the RH factor is a protein that can be found on the surface of red blood cells. If your blood cells have this protein, you are RH positive. If your blood cells do not have this protein, you are RH negative. Whether you're RH positive or negative is determined before birth and is inherited from one of your parents. If you know your blood type, you'll know what your RH factor is. So A, B, AB, or O positive blood, so if you have A positive, B positive, those all have an RH positive factor. Anyone who has like A negative, B neg, AB neg, or O neg, that blood type means that you have a negative RH factor. So if you already know your blood type, you already know what your RH factor is. RH incompatibility is only an issue if you, as the mother, have an RH negative blood type and your baby is RH positive. If you are RH positive, you can pretty much just ignore the rest of this podcast and tune in next week, or feel free to listen and find out some information because you might be able to help out another pregnant mama or share the podcast with them if you would be so kind to do so. You never know when someone might ask you a question or just not really know what the RH incompatibility even means, and you can kind of come in like the knight in shining armor and help them out and give them some info. So only 15% of the population has Rh negative blood. So your odds are pretty good to start off with. But if you do experience it, here's kind of what you can expect. So the first question is, how does Rh factor affect the pregnancy? So if you have an Rh incompatibility, issues can arise if your baby's blood ends up getting into your bloodstream. This isn't always common, but it can happen if there's bleeding during the pregnancy, during special procedures like amniocentesis, or while attempting to turn a breech baby. It can also happen if there's any trauma to your belly at all during pregnancy, or even during labor and birth. So there's a few instances. You just never know when one of these can happen, so you want to be prepared in case it does. If there is a mix of blood, your body will know that it's not the correct blood, and it'll start to fight it off. The antibodies that mom makes during pregnancy can cross the placenta and will start to fight off your baby's blood. If it goes untreated, it can lead to extremely serious complications, and your baby can become very anemic. Without enough red blood cells, your baby will not have enough oxygen it needs to survive. So if it goes untreated, the complications are very serious, but luckily there is a treatment. Now that I've explained kind of how it works, I don't want you to worry that much. There's a way to treat it. Your doctor or midwife will most likely test your blood during the first visit, or like for in my instance, they sent me to a lab to get all my blood work done right after my first visit. They will then tell you if you're Rh negative and if your body has already started to produce antibodies. If your body has not started to make antibodies, which if you're early in the pregnancy, the odds are good, you will be given RHLG, which is Rh immunoglobulin. Oh, I did not say that right. A RhoGAM shot is what they call it. And this not only prevents you from making antibodies during the pregnancy, but you can also protect all of your future babies. So you'll get a dose of RHLG at around 28 weeks and again within 72 hours after birth. You may need an additional dose in certain conditions, like if you have any trauma, but that's really on a case-by-case basis. If your body has already started to make antibodies, you will have to talk to your doctor to determine what the next steps are based off of your specific conditions. You may have to give your baby as extreme as like a blood transfusion before or after delivery. But those are really in severe cases. They might have you deliver a little bit early. It just is really case by case, but most of the time they're able to catch it well before any antibodies are made, and there's really not a huge difference in your pregnancy at all besides getting those RhoGAM shots. The thing about the Rh incompatibility is it's like, so if you get a cold, your body creates those antibodies. So you end up getting the cold, and right at the end, it kind of creates those antibodies. So the next time you get exposed to that strand, your body has already made those antibodies and can fight it off from the beginning. Now, this is how this works, but with babies. So the first baby is this like foreign object, and your body creates all those antibodies. So your risk isn't as high with your first child, although you definitely still want to get your RhoGAM shot. You still want to get treated for all of that. But the real issue comes with subsequent pregnancies because your body has already created those antibodies, and you don't want it to just go and start to fight off that new fetus. So to summarize, although it sounds intense, you have nothing to worry about if you get the proper testing and treatment. It's just one of the many reasons it's so important to receive prenatal care early on and to keep up on your visits. For women that can't afford prenatal care, I did find a number for you guys to call. It's 800-311-BABY. And you can call them toll free to get in contact with your local health department, and they'll help you find free or reduced cost prenatal care. So that's a great option for people that feel like they cannot afford prenatal care. It's really important to get checked out, and there are options for you out there. So now I'd like to switch over to an interview that I did on Rh incompatibility with someone who's been through it a few times now, 3 times, and just to give you guys a little bit of firsthand knowledge on it and chat a little bit more about it, because obviously I don't have a personal experience to share, so I want to be able to give you guys that insight. So here we go. All right. Hello, listeners. Today we have a very special guest here on the podcast. It's actually my mother. Her name's Tish, and she is here with us right now.
Hello.
So my mom is pretty amazing. She has been through this RH incompatibility 3 times with me and my brother and sister. So she has firsthand knowledge in how the whole process works and has really had to go through not just once with me, but she's gone through it with all 3 of us since she does have A negative blood. So I wanted to bring her on the podcast so she could share some of her experiences with you. I know looking up some of the research, it can be a little bit scary at the beginning because there are complications, but I wanted to just share with you guys her experience and how that whole process went. So to get started, I guess my first question is, did you know what your blood type was before the pregnancy?
I did not.
So you didn't find out that you were negative till probably, I'm guessing, your first blood testing that they did, after that first visit, they send you to get all the blood work done, and they came back and they told you
that I was A negative, yes.
Got it. And so going forward, when did I guess what kind of what did they have to do to help prevent anything like that? Do you remember?
I remember getting a shot, Rogam shot, at about 28 weeks pregnant, and then after you were born, they tested your blood, and because you were A positive, I got another shot after you were born.
Awesome. And then, I guess not awesome, but did I have to get anything, as a baby? Did they have to give me a shot or anything? Do you know?
No.
Oh, perfect. It's all for you. Yeah, from my research, it looks like it just really prevents your body from creating the antibodies that fight off this foreign object.
That's what I was told, yes.
All right. And so with being RH incompatible, did you really notice any difference in your pregnancy compared to anyone else you knew that what had a positive RH factor?
I didn't notice any difference. My best friend and I were pregnant at the same time, and I didn't notice any differences.
Well, that's really good to hear. I know sometimes if you have any trauma to your belly or any issues, the baby's blood can get into your bloodstream, and that's when it causes a lot of issues. And I know that you were actually in a car accident with me. When was that? You were...
Yeah, 6 months. When I was 6 months pregnant with you, I was rear-ended, pushed me into the car in front of us, and I went to physical therapy after that had happened up until the time you were born. But there were no issues with you or the birth.
Well, that's really reassuring to hear. I know some women it might scare them a little bit reading that if they were in any sort of issue, obviously you want to go to the doctor and get checked out and make sure there are no complications. But that is one thing that I read that I know probably would worry me a bit if I did have anything like that happen to me. But I guess my final question is really... I'm just curious from my research, I saw that there's not really a big deal with the first pregnancy because your body hasn't really created the antibodies. It's more about protecting the baby in subsequent pregnancies. Is that kind of go along with what you heard from your doctors?
I did, but they gave me the Rogam shot with you just to be on the safe side, and then I got it with the next 2 pregnancies, and both those kids were also A positive, so I had to get the shot at 28 weeks pregnant and then after birth again.
And no issues, I'm assuming, with either
no complications with either of the other 2.
Well, awesome. That's very reassuring. I know anything that comes up during pregnancy can be a little nerve-wracking. Everyone wants to hear that they have like the textbook perfect pregnancy. But I'm really glad that, with the RH incompatibility, I feel like it seems a little more scary on paper when you read through the symptoms than like what
Especially
it actually.
with your first child.
Oh yeah, I'm sure once they told you that, at first it was like, well, what is that? Because I didn't even know about it before my pregnancy either until they tested my blood and came back and said, oh, okay, well, you're A positive, so you don't have to worry about any RH incompatibilities. And I'm like, I have no idea what that means. So I'm sure just hearing about that with your first child can be a little bit nerve-wracking, but I'm really glad that you had a positive experience with all three of us.
Yes, I did, definitely.
So, well, thank you so much for coming on and just talking with me and sharing your experiences. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure all my listeners will appreciate hearing your side of the story as well.
Well, thank you.
All right, that was some great content. I really hope that helped give you guys some insight into what all this RH incompatibility is and kind of how it can affect your pregnancy. So now, real quick, before we get into today's product review, if you could all just take a moment to rate the podcast, hopefully 5 stars, or even write up a quick product review after the episode. This just really helps the podcast grow and allows us to reach and help more parents out there. So just wanted to throw that out there. After the episode, if you guys could just like go and rate us really quickly, it really helps. And I can't tell you guys how much I appreciate my listeners' feedback. So now onto the product review. This week, I will be talking all about the Power Step shoe inserts. So during pregnancy, your feet are going to hate you. You'll want a way to relieve the pressure between the sudden weight increase, the ridiculous swelling, and the fact that your feet can actually get bigger during pregnancy. You're going to be in a little bit of discomfort. I purchased these shoe inserts when I was 15 weeks pregnant, and they were such a lifesaver. They are not particularly beautiful, but these Power Step inserts provide great arch support and has a heel cradle for additional comfort. They are easy to transfer from shoe to shoe, and I only purchased one pair, and I just switched them out between all of my shoes that I wore. Really, I went through the majority of my pregnancy during the fall and winter, so I just had 2 favorite pairs of boots, and I just kind of slid them in and out, but they're really easy. They're not hard to slide in and out, so you don't really need to buy a bunch of pairs of them. For sizing, I really found that they fit true to size, and I just ordered the same size as my shoe. I didn't have to order a size down so they would fit in a size that they're supposed to. I normally wear a women's size 10, and I ordered the 10 to 10.5, and they fit really well inside both pairs of my riding boots, which are both size 10. So even though it was a 10 to 10.5, I was a little bit worried that it was going to be too big, but I didn't have any issues. They fit perfectly. I will note, though, that they do not fit in some smaller profile shoes like my Toms. They're a little too high, so when you slide your foot in, there's not enough room between the insert and the top of the shoe. It's not that they didn't fit lengthwise. But they did fit in my tennis shoes, no problem, and a bunch of other different pairs of shoes that I had. So if you have tennis shoes or boots or even in my Uggs, they fit in those no problem. So they fit in most pairs of my shoes. For quality, I use these things every single day for most of my pregnancy, and they never started to deteriorate. I gained 60 pounds by the time I got to delivery, right? Yikes. So I really put these inserts to the test. I kind of wore them down and oh man, I couldn't imagine. I got pretty heavy, and I was out walking multiple times a day, every day towards the end of the pregnancy, just because I had so much swelling in my feet. So I would literally take breaks every day at work and go walk around. I was getting easily 10,000 steps in a day, and I wore these things every single day, and they were totally held up to the test. I truly could not imagine how painful my feet would have been without them. And there's a few times that like I was running late and I'd like wear my boots without the inserts, and I really noticed a difference. And the arch of my foot would start to like get a little cramped while I was walking, and it just wasn't good. So I really appreciated having these. For downsides, I'm sure there are better insoles out there, but for the price, these really did a great job. I was a little bit bummed that they didn't fit in all of my shoes due to the higher profile arch, but I feel like this high arch really aided in the overall comfort of them. If it didn't have as like structured of an arch in them, it probably wouldn't have been as comfortable and as supportive. So overall, I would definitely recommend them to any pregnant mama. Some insoles are upwards of $60 to $100, which I was not willing to spend on something I only use for a few months. I don't normally wear inserts. Honestly, I'm a little too lazy to like put them in all my shoes and do the switch out every time. So I just didn't really want to have to deal with that, to be honest. So I knew this was a pregnancy only purchase. If you're planning on getting something that will last forever, you might want to go with something a little bit more expensive that can really be like formed and shaped to your foot. But for something that you're just going to use for a little bit during the pregnancy, these were perfect. You can get these on Amazon. They are extremely affordable. They're well worth the cost. I will link to them in my show notes for you guys to check them out. And I hope you really enjoy them if you decide to give them a try. And that is it for this week. Thank you so much for all of you joining us on the Growing Our Family Pregnancy Podcast. Make sure to visit our website, growingourfamily.com. That's growingourfamily.com to see today's show notes and product links. And again, don't forget to rate and subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you download your podcast so you always get the latest episodes. If you love the show, the easiest way to support us is to share with any of your pregnant mama friends if you're enjoying the content. Just sharing with one person can really spread the love and help out other expecting parents as well. I know I had so many questions during my pregnancy. I'm guessing you guys probably have questions too if you're listening to podcasts, and that's great. I really feel like an informed pregnancy is so important. It helps you make decisions, and just having that knowledge is just so critical in being informed and just being in control of your own body. So if you feel like it's important, just think of how many other people you can help out just by sharing the podcast with them. Just one person can help just spread it around, and I will be eternally grateful to all of you. If you already had your baby or you just want to hear more about life after delivery, check out the Growing Our Family Parenting Edition. Please join me next week for another episode.